Ooh, your girlfriend is so pretty, Asher. What's her name? My annoying sister said as she crept up behind me. I was at my computer looking at pictures of gorgeous celebrities. This isn't my girlfriend. Get out of my room, you pest, I said. You'll never have a girlfriend anyway. You're too ugly, she replied while running out of my room. She was little, but I guess she was right. Not about the ugly part, but about me not ever having a girlfriend. Although I was already 18 years old, I'd never had a girlfriend. This was my choice, though. I found the girls my age too immature, needy, and boring. I watched my friends get into petty, ridiculous arguments with their girlfriends, and I just shuddered at the thought of me having to go through the same thing. They got upset over everything. If you didn't text them good morning, if you didn't call them during the day to ask how they were, if you didn't help them carry their bags, if you didn't tell them they were pretty at least 10 times a day. I mean, the list is exhausting. You know who I did have crushes on, though? Older women. I found most of my female teachers super attractive. The older, the better. I even had a thing for the principal. I'd look at random women on the street and fantasize about them too. Even my mom's friends. Of course, I was too young to ask any of them out, so I just went through high school having the most boring love life ever. After high school, I worked for a year, then got accepted into my dream college. The week before I was supposed to go, I organized a hike for me and my friends. We would climb the highest mountain in our state, then have a picnic on the summit. I figured it was more adventurous than having a lame old goodbye party. We were having an amazing time until my best buddy Greg dared me to run back down the mountain at full speed. This mountain was slippery and covered with sharp rocks, and in retrospect, Greg probably meant it as a joke, but I'm no coward. I ran for about 20 minutes. I stopped for a while to catch my breath and then started again. Suddenly, I felt myself flying. Then, everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed surrounded by worried faces. Asher, darling, cried my mom as she saw my eyes open. What happened to me? I asked. I'm not sure, but your friends found you blacked out in the bushes. How do you feel? She said. I hadn't thought about it until that point. I was in extreme pain. I couldn't feel the lower half of my body, and I felt like my arm was broken. I feel awful. What happened to me? I asked. At that moment, a doctor walked in. Hi, Asher. Both of your legs are broken, and you won't be able to use one of your arms for a while. What on earth were you doing? He said. I was just running. I don't really know what happened, I replied. He looked disappointed. My parents stayed with me until visiting hours were over. I stayed in that hospital for a few weeks, and I hated it. The food was terrible, and I missed my room. I eventually decided to persuade my parents to take me home. But who will take care of you? My mom asked. We could hire a nurse. I already have someone in mind, my dad said. Okay, well, if you're sure about that, then fine, my mom replied. Thanks, Mom and Dad, I said while trying to hop off my bed, completely forgetting that I couldn't move. My first night back home, I was filled with horrible thoughts. Don't get me wrong, I was happy to be home, but my injury meant that I'd have to change so many of my plans. First, I wouldn't be able to go to college that year. Would I even be well enough to walk the next year? I had no idea. I wouldn't be able to go where I wanted, play sports, or have much fun. I fell asleep and had more nightmares about how much my life would suck in the coming months. I woke up to the breeze blowing softly on my cheeks and the birds chirping outside. I felt grateful for a second, and then I was filled with depressing thoughts about my terrible life again. Suddenly, my bedroom door opened. Asher, honey, I'd like to introduce you to someone special. This is Denise, your nurse. She'll be taking care of you while your dad and I leave for work during the week, my mom said. In walked the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen in my life. Think of the hottest woman you've ever met and multiply that by 100. That's how hot she was. I stared in shock, and for a while, I felt like my face was broken too. Hi, Asher. I'm so happy to meet you, she said. Hi, I said. I was way too shy to say anything else. A week passed, and I hadn't said much to her. She stayed with me during the day and took very good care of me. She'd bring me my meals, and sometimes she'd tell me funny stories too. I wasn't very responsive because I was nervous as hell. When she left at nights, I'd fantasize about her until she came back the next morning. I wished we could have something more, but I didn't know how to tell her. I told myself that I needed to become more friendly. So the next week, I did just that. I told her stories too, and it was easy to make her laugh. She told me she was married with 3 children and on the verge of divorce. But that didn't matter to me. It only meant that she was more mature and that soon she would be completely mine. I was pretty sure I could be a good stepdad too. When I felt more comfortable with her, I'd leave her little poems and tell her how beautiful she was every day. She blushed every time. When I was strong enough to move to the living room, we'd watch movies and eat popcorn together. "Oh, Asher, you are wise beyond your years." "Are you sure you're only 18? She laughed one day. "I am," I said while gazing into her eyes. For a minute, it seemed as if she was lost in my eyes too. And then, in a flash, we were kissing. I couldn't believe this was really happening. "Oh my gosh," I said as we pulled away. "Did you have feelings for me all this time too?" I asked. "From the moment I laid eyes on you," she replied. "I know that your situation at home is a bit complicated, but would you consider being my girlfriend?" I asked. "I thought you'd never ask," she responded. So there it was. I was in a relationship with a much older woman, a hot nurse, the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen in my life. My legs were broken, but I felt like the luckiest man in the universe. Later, I started going to a physiotherapist, and I started to gain my strength in my legs. Eventually, I was able to walk with a cane, but Denise still came over to take care of me while my parents were away. One morning after breakfast, my mom said, "Asher, you're almost better. Do you still need a nurse? I think it's time we let her go. You're able to fend for yourself now." "No!" my dad and I shouted at the same time. My mom looked very confused. "It's a lot of added expense that we don't really need right now. We're not done paying the mortgage for this house, and we have to deal with our car payments as well as your hospital bills. It's too much. Today is her last day," she said. I sighed. My dad looked disappointed too, but I didn't know why. I decided I needed to come up with a plan, and quick. Denise is here because I got into an accident. How can I get her to stay longer? Aha, that's it. I can hurt myself badly, so my mom has no choice but to let her stay, I thought. When Denise came, my mom broke the news to her. She looked crushed. "Don't worry," I whispered and winked. We had a romantic day together. I had a long nap, and when I woke up, I wasn't sure where Denise was. It was time to execute my plan. I walked to the top of the staircase and threw myself all the way down. I blacked out and woke up in the hospital again. It was like deja vu. I had only broken one arm and bruised my head really badly, but my mom agreed to allow Denise to stay for 2 more weeks. I was ecstatic. I went home feeling accomplished. The next day, Denise brought me my favorite blueberry cheesecake. We sat and spoke for hours. I couldn't stop staring at her beauty, and I felt so happy that I was getting to spend more time with her. She gazed into my eyes, and we kissed. I heard some noises downstairs, but I paid no attention to them. I was too lost in her embrace. Then, we heard a loud bang on my bedroom door, which was wide open. "What the hell is going on here?" my dad shouted. "I brought you into my house to take care of my son, and here you are making out with him? You make me sick," he continued. "Dad, no, it was me. Please don't blame her," I pleaded. Suddenly, my dad burst into tears. "Why are you crying, Dad?" I asked. He walked up to Denise and held her face in his hands. "How could you do this to me, sweetheart? I thought that what we had was special. But you're cheating on me with my son. How could you do this to me?" he cried. "I'm so sorry, darling. You know I love you, but I also have something special with Asher," she replied. I was so shocked that I couldn't speak, and apparently we were so lost in the moment that we didn't hear my mom walking up the stairs. She walked into my room curiously. "What's all this commotion about?" she asked. She was holding a glass of water which fell to the floor as she stood in shock. "Gregory, why are you holding the nurse's face in your hands?" she said. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I've been meaning to talk to you about this. I'm so sorry that I hid it for such a long time, but I've been having an affair with Denise." She was my high school girlfriend, and when she came to work here, we started seeing each other again, and it was just magical. It's why I suggested her in the first place. She's getting a divorce soon, and I will move in with her and the kids, he said. But that's what she told me. I'm moving in with her, I screamed. What? My mom asked in confusion. I think it was too much for her, so she walked out. I'm sorry to both of you, said the nurse. The truth is, I'm not leaving my husband. I just wanted to have a bit of fun, but I'm very devoted to him and to my family. I'm sorry I put you all through this. I love you both, she said, and walked out of the door too. My father and I stared at each other blankly. So much was going through my mind. I'd lost the love of my life, and now my family was about to fall apart. A month later, everything had changed. My mom got a divorce from my dad, who went to live on his own in a cabin near a creek. I stayed with my mom, who was still devastated. I planned to go to college the next year, and I really hoped that things would turn around for me. I suppose I should give younger women a chance. What do you think?